Oh, what sorrow, pity, pain, that tears and blood should mix like rain. In Mississippi, and terror fed it hot, yet clammy cold remain. The vicious lynching of Emmett Lewis Till is a crucial turning point in the civil rights movement. All of America was forced to witness the sight of an innocent child brutalized by racist beliefs, providing fuel that would be lit into a blazing fire of outrage by civil rights activists. The sheer horror and tragedy of the incident would become the catalyst for long-term legislative and social change. Yet the story is underspoken in modern historic recollection due to the sheer ugliness of the incident. Within this underappreciated story, there is one person that was never given the credit they deserved. An unsung hero who gave her everything to make sure her son's sacrifices would not be in vain. That person is Mamie Till-Mobley.
Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze.
The oppression of African Americans can be traced back to the age of Western colonization. To further the profitability of newly colonized America, crop-based plantations were created throughout the land. Africans were kidnapped from their native lands to work as slaves in American plantations. Even when slavery ended, racial hierarchies were still prevalent in America. Almost 100 years after the end of slavery, Southern Jim Crow laws that made blacks second-class citizens were an everyday reality for black Americans. Segregation was mandated, with black Americans having objectively less rights and liberties than white Americans. The legalized separation of black and white citizens dominated American policy until the ruling of Brown v. Board of Education, where the Supreme Court ruled that equality was not possible in a segregated state. This approach towards racial integration increased conflict in the South, as many Southerners believed that blacks were inferior beings and that integration would corrupt America. This fear towards integration was especially strong concerning interracial relations, which was a heavy taboo in the South. It was in this climate that Mamie Till-Mobley and every other black American had to live in the mid-1950s. Till grew up in Chicago, where racism was prominent despite it being declared illegal. Mamie was married 3 times in her lifetime. Her first husband, Lewis Till, was the father of her only child. The marriage ended poorly. Lewis frequently abused Mamie until Mamie decided to fight back, leave, and file a restraining order. Lewis went to serve in the army but was executed for murdering one girl and raping 2 others. But Mamie stayed strong. She always had her son Emmett Till by her side. Emmett was widely known to be a mischievous young man. He loved baseball and played whenever he had a chance. As a child, he aspired to be a motorcycle cop or a professional baseball player. In trade for his mother financially providing for the family, Emmett took up many chores. When he forgot to do his morning chores, he'd leave notes for his mother, saying things like, "Mama, feed Mike, he's hungry, poor dog." But their peace did not last.
Pastoral scene of the gallant South.
In late August 1955, Mamie allowed 14-year-old Emmett to visit the southern state of Mississippi with some friends. Emmett arrived in Mississippi on August 20th. On August 24th, Emmett and company drove into Money, a nearby white town, without the permission of the adults taking care of them. While there, Emmett was urged by an unidentified boy to enter a store there and look at Caroline Bryant, a white girl working at the place. There are many different versions of what occurred once Emmett entered the store. What most accounts agree on is that Emmett entered the store, bought some candy, acted flirtatiously towards Caroline Bryant through whistling her words, and did not use ma'am when addressing her. In response to this, Caroline Bryant went to her car to grab a pistol. Emmett Till and his companions were made aware of this and ran away. Knowing that Emmett had broken many southern taboos, his cousins all rushed him out of town. Roy Bryant, Caroline Bryant's husband, returned home from his business trip to be met with an outrageous story of a young black boy and his wife. On August 28th at 2 a.m., Emmett's uncle, Mose Till, was awakened by a loud knocking on his door by Roy Bryant. Bryant was accompanied by 2 other large men. Bryant demanded to see Emmett. Mose Wright led them to where Emmett was sleeping. The men woke Emmett up and ordered him to get dressed. Wright begged them to spare Emmett, asking that they only take him outside and whip him. Elizabeth Wright, Moses' wife, offered to repay them with money. These requests were futile efforts. The 3 men took Emmett into their car and drove away with him. 3 days had passed and Emmett Till was still missing. Between 6:30 and 7 a.m., Robert Hodges was fishing on Tallahatchie River and spotted something strange. A pair of human legs sticking out of the water. The county sheriff was soon notified. Authorities discovered a terrible sight. The body was in horrible condition. It had been badly beaten up by the river. There was a bullet hole above the right ear along with signs of pistol whipping, and the face had been cut by an axe. The left eyeball had almost completely popped out of its socket, and the tongue was about 3 inches out of the mouth. A 75-pound cotton gin was wrapped around the body's neck. It was clear evidence of brutal torture before eventual murder.
'Twas grace that
Mosrite knew this was Emmett Till's body as soon as he laid eyes on it. The ring on Till's finger only served as further confirmation that this was indeed the young boy he was taking care of. The fun-loving, innocent Emmett Till, 14 years old, tortured, beaten, killed until he no longer resembled himself. The body was so swollen that the casket it was put into couldn't close its lid. Yet, in these moments, Mamie's resolve only strengthened. After hearing that local officials were attempting to give Emmett a speedy burial in Mississippi, she demanded that his body be sent back to Chicago. And in these moments, she said, "Let the people see what they did to my boy." Mamie Till-Mobley refused to let her son's sacrifices go to waste. She first requested that her son's wake be held at a funeral home so that more people could see the body. She then taped photos of Emmett on the inside lid of the casket so people could compare the beautiful young boy to the clobbered mess laying in front of them. Then, Mamie held a 4-day-long open casket funeral for public viewing, which had estimates of 250,000 total attendants lining up to see what had been done to the poor boy. She also allowed the magazines The Chicago Defender and Jet to publish photographs of Emmett's body, in addition to television coverage of the event. Mamie Till-Mobley had faced the worst nightmare of any mother. No words can explain how painful it is to lose one's own child, yet she found the strength to look beyond herself and make the ultimate sacrifice to push for a better future. She let her grieving self be vulnerable to the world so that everyone could understand the horrors her family had been exposed to. It is here, in this crucial yet underspoken moment, that Mamie Till-Mobley proved herself to be a hero. Learning of the clearly deliberate crime against the well-being of a child, many saw the trial of Emmett's murderers as a chance for the American legal system to represent a progression towards racial justice. Unfortunately, America at its core was still rotten with bitter hatred. Southerners argued that the actions of Roy Bryan and J.W. Millam, Emmett's murderers, were necessary to deter blacks from thinking that interracial relations were acceptable. The defense claimed that there was no definitive evidence that the body found in the river was Emmett Till, which took away the prosecution's grounds for conviction. At the end of several days of trial, the jury convened to discuss their verdict. After 1 hour and 7 minutes of deliberation, the jury came to a verdict of not guilty. But because of the bold actions taken by Mamie before the trial even began, Emmett would not be forgotten. To see the pure hatred required to viciously torture a young boy, then throw his body into a river, was eye-opening for many Americans who believed that America had reached racial equality after the ruling of Brown v. Board of Education. The clearly unjust verdict only reinforced to many that there was an urgent need for change to better protect the rights of Black Americans. This shock to America's collective consciousness was the spark needed to elevate the civil rights movement to another level. Iconic boxer and civil rights activist Muhammad Ali said, "I realized that this could just as easily have been a story about me or my brother," when speaking about Emmett Till. In response to being asked about why she refused to go to the back of the bus, Rosa Parks said, "I thought of Emmett Till and I couldn't go back." After all the dust had settled, Mamie was left to face the infinite grief of losing her beloved son. It tore her in ways that words could never describe. She needed time to heal. After the occasional speech and publication of her own memoir, Mamie took time away from the eyes of the public. She graduated cum laude at Chicago Teachers College, became an elementary school teacher, and married Jean-Mobley. On January 6, 2003, Mamie died of a heart attack. She has recently been honored by receiving a Congressional Gold Medal along with her son, and through the passing of the Mamie Till-Mobley Memorial Stamp Act. Emmett was also honored through the passing of the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Emmett's case is still given consideration to this day, with several instances of the case being reopened, and Caroline Bryant recently admitting that she exaggerated the young boy's actions in the store. To this day, the racism that killed Emmett Till has not been completely eliminated from America. This can be seen in the unnecessary killing of Trayvon Martin. In an eerily similar set of events to Emmett Till's, Trayvon Martin was killed in 2012 at the age of 17 on a trip to Sanford, Florida. George Zimmerman spotted Trayvon Martin walking around in a black hoodie and assumed Martin was up to no good. He called 911 and followed Martin around. Martin was scared by the strange man following him, so he called his friend for consolation, then broke into a run. Zimmerman pursued Martin with a gun. A physical altercation broke out between Zimmerman and Martin was shot dead. In another scary similarity to Emmett Till, Zimmerman was acquitted of all charges by a jury of his peers. Despite the importance of Emmett and Mamie Till's story, it is not highlighted to the degree of other famous, more palatable civil rights activist stories. Stories like that of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. show the badness of racism enough to communicate the need for social change. In contrast, the story of Emmett Till is rarely retold when portraying the civil rights era because it focuses on the ugliness of racism, something that people aren't as willing to see. But it is because of the ugly, honest nature of this tragedy that it is so important to the civil rights movement. Although she did not receive the same recognition as many other civil rights leaders, Mamie Till-Mobley's contributions to the fight for black rights are as important as any others. The imagery of Emmett Till's bodies will forever be burnt into the history of America, leaving a profound impact that no amount of words, speeches, or protests could ever replicate. She showed America that the violence of racism could reach any mother's child, and therefore every person, both back then and right now, has a duty to fight for what is right.
I believe that the whole United States is mourning with me. And if the death of my son can mean something to the other unfortunate people all over the world, then for him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died.